Hello everyone and welcome to another devlog video for Homegrown, the casual farming game I'm making using my own engine. This is the second part of the automation update, which I started last time with the sprinklers, and this time I'm going to be showing you how I implemented the automation machines. So I'm moving on to the next part of this automation update today, which is going to be the auto harvesters and the auto planters. They're both going to work in a similar way. You're going to have these machines that you can place at the end of your vegetable beds, and these machines are going to be able to move from tile to tile, processing each tile in some way. So for the harvester, that's going to be harvesting the plants, and when it reaches the end of the row, it's just going to return to this kind of docking station, and it will deposit the vegetables into a container for you to collect whenever you want. So this morning I'm going to get started by adding that machine into the game. So starting off very simply today, I made a placeholder model for the docking station and for the robot. It's not really a robot, but that's what I'm going to call it. And I made that into a placeable item, so I can place the docking station at the end of one of my vegetable beds. And when I do that, it spawns the robot entity, which currently has some very simple movement code that just moves it back and forth up and down the bed. Next up, I've just been implementing the robot's behaviors using behavior trees. Not that they have particularly complex behaviors. All they do is they go from tile to tile, processing each tile in some way, and then when they reach the end of the row, they just turn around and go back to their docking station. There are lots of edge cases though, which is why I thought it would be best handled using behavior trees. For example, what happens when you block the pathway of one of the robots? They need to know to turn back. Or if you try and trap one away from home, then it just teleports home. So I'm going to do a bit of work on the models next. I want to make it a bit more obvious what I'm actually trying to achieve here, because I feel like right now it looks like I want your farm to be run by loads of little AI robots, and that's really not the case. Before I actually update the models, I just wanted to work on having these docking stations connect to each other when they're placed next to each other, like this, so that it forms one big docking station. I did this in the same way that I have the fences connecting. I've shown this in a previous devlog video. The way it works is I made multiple model options for the docking station, and then in the code it chooses which of those to use based on the contents of the neighbouring tiles. Here it is again with some slightly improved models now. They're still not the final models. I've got a bit more work to do on them. I'm trying to make them look machine-like, obviously, but at the same time I don't want them to look too ugly. I want them to somewhat fit in with the natural look of your farm, which is a bit of a difficult balance to strike, so if you've got any suggestions, let me know. By the way, the reason that I want these machines to kind of connect together is so that it looks like you've got one big machine per bed rather than lots of little individual machines. Obviously the fact that they currently have individual behaviors is kind of spoiling that a bit, but I'm going to fix that soon. But first, I want to do a bit of work on animating some of these model parts. So in terms of visuals, I think I'm almost there now. I've got some moving wheels, I've got the blades rotating until they reach the end of the bed and then they stop. And the whole machine is now connected by this bar at the top. And I did that to make the whole thing feel a bit more like one connected mechanical machine rather than an autonomous robot going off and doing its own thing. This is a bit more of what I had in mind. So I think I'm going to leave the visuals there. I'll definitely do more work on them at some point, but I'm happy with them for now. So tomorrow I'll be moving on to the next stage. It is 8 o'clock in the morning. Today I'm going to be working on trying to get these auto harvesters to move in a bit more of a synchronized fashion. But I've also got quite a few other things going on today. I'm currently in the process of writing my application for Gamescom this year, which I thought would be a really cool experience. I'm not sure what the chances are of me actually getting a place, but I thought I'd give it a go. Why not? And then also this week, there's a few Equilinox things happening. Firstly, it's in an event on Steam at the moment, the Earth Appreciation Festival. And tomorrow, it's going to be shown at the Athens Digital Arts Festival, which is really cool. I'm not actually going to be there, but I've got a few things to do on social media for that. So, lots going on at the moment. So what I'm trying to do now is to get any machines that are placed next to each other to act as if they're one single machine. So the first thing I need to do is to work out which machines are connected to each other. So I've introduced this concept of the machine group, and any machines that are connected together become part of the same group. And just for testing, I've color-coded all of the groups here, so you can see which machines are in which group. And of course, these groups need to keep updating as more machines are added to the world. So if I add a machine here, that will get added to that blue group. If I add one here, that's going to get added to the green group. And if I add one here, that's going to connect these two groups. So they're going to merge together and become one big group. But then if I go ahead and remove one of these, it's going to split it up into two groups again, and so on. So the groups are all updating nicely now, and I can start implementing some group behaviors. I've been working all morning on the group behaviors for the machines. So now that the machines know what group they're in, they can kind of sync up their movements with the other machines in that group. So they now all set off together and move in a synchronized fashion. They can still split up, like in this situation here, they have to, but they then wait around for each other on the way back. So as much as possible, they're moving together like one big machine. And it also means that they process the entire bed in one go and then it's done, rather than each machine processing its own row at a different time. Also this morning I did a little bit of work on a video that I'm going to post on my social medias for the Earth Appreciation Festival announcement, which was fun to make. It was nice looking back at all of the stuff I implemented for Equilinox. I've been doing lots of code work this afternoon, and I've been making it possible for me to add specific functionality to machines so that I can have different machines that do different things. So here's the code for the auto harvester, for example, and this provides the functionality for things like checking whether tiles are ready to be processed and determining what actually happens when a tile is processed. So I've been testing that out in the game here, and I've now made two different types of machines. We've got the harvesters on the right and these new planters on the left. The harvesters will only set off once all of the plants in the beds are fully grown, so let me just speed that up so we can see it happen. So everything's fully grown now, the harvesters set off, and when they process the tiles, they obviously harvest the plants. And then the planters will set off once the field is empty, so you can see that happening now. And when these machines process tiles, they pop down some seeds. Good morning everyone. It is a lovely sunny Monday morning. I've just had a couple of days off for the weekend, although I did do a bit of work on all of the Equilinox stuff that's been going on recently. But that's all done now, so getting back to work on Homegrown this morning, and I'm going to be working on the final part of the whole automation puzzle, which is containers. Both of these machine types need access to a container. The harvesters need somewhere to put the harvested vegetables, and the planters need somewhere to get the seeds from. So my task today is just to implement those containers. There are actually quite a few aspects to this container stuff. So I want the contents to be visible so that you can see how full it is, and also so that you can see what's in there. So I need the contents to change color and maybe shape to match whatever item is currently in the container. Obviously the container needs to be interactable. You need to be able to click on it to put stuff in, take stuff out, and it needs to have a mouse over UI showing exactly what's in there. So I've started off by making a quick model for the container, and I've made the contents part separate so that it can move up and down to indicate how full the container is. And then in the game I've made it a placeable item, and for now I can just manually control the contents. I can increase and decrease the contents, and you can see the visuals change accordingly. I've now made it possible for you to put stuff into the containers, and when you do, the contents take the colour of whatever you put in. So if I put turnips in, it turns purple, leeks, it goes green, and so on. It would be nice if it came up with that colour automatically, but I just took the easy route, and in the item files, like this one for the turnip, I just provide the colour that the contents should go. Next, I would like to work a bit on having the mesh also change, the mesh of the contents, because this one does not look like it contains leeks. So obviously I didn't really want to have to create a specific contents mesh for every single item. So what I've done is I've made a selection of kind of generic shapes for produce and then also for seeds, and then the items in their item files can simply reference which of those meshes they want to use, and they can give it a color. So in the game, if I start adding some of these vegetables to these containers, you can see that things are looking a little bit more realistic now. I've also made some for the seeds as well, so it's looking a bit better now. Obviously I can spend lots of time on this and make these models as specific to the items as I want, but I think a lot of the items look pretty similar, especially for the seeds, so I think it's fine if a few of them share the same models. Almost done with the containers now. I've just got the UI left to do, but I'm just stopping for a quick dinner break. I've made the draft in GIMP, and then this evening I'll try and power through the implementation. So container UI is done. It's pretty simple, but it does what it's meant to do. Shows you what items are in there and how full the container is. So that's the containers pretty much done, and tomorrow I'll be getting them to work together with the machines. So lots of programming this morning, setting up the interaction between containers and machines. Firstly, I added a placement requirement to the containers, so they now have to be placed next to a machine. When you place them, it creates a connection between the container and the adjacent machine. Not visually yet, so that's what I'll be working on next, but in the code it calls this connect container method on the machine. That sets the container in the machine class, but also sets it for the entire group of machines. So all of these machines now have access to this container and can put stuff in there or take stuff out. Also in the code, I added this concept of storage conditions, which can be added to a container to limit what you can put in there. So when I add a container next to these auto planters, it limits what you can put in there to just seeds. So I can't put anything else in there. I can only put seeds in, and once I've put one type of seed in, I then can't put any other seeds in there until I remove the first type, or they all get used up. So yeah, next up I'm going to be working on the visual connection between machine and container. So I've just made this extra model part for the machines, and I've programmed that to only show up when there's a container behind the machine, like this. So it now looks like they're connected together. So I'm going to leave the visuals there for now. I definitely want to do more work on them. I've realised that the style of the container is very different from the style of the machines, so I definitely need to make that feel a bit more coherent. But for now I want to get back to the functionality and get these harvesters harvesting into the connected container. So the auto harvesters are now completely working. You can see in their process tile methods, they harvest the plant, get the items from it, and then they add those items to the container that's attached to that machine's group. So let me show you this in the game. I've got some carrots growing here. I'm just going to speed them up so that we can see this happening. So the auto harvester is set off, and you can see in the container it's getting fuller and the carrots are being deposited into it. And then whenever I want, I can come and take the carrots from this container just by clicking on the container. So like the sprinklers, this means that this also has a bit of a maintenance cost, some manual maintenance involved, which is occasionally coming to empty the container because the harvesters won't harvest if the container's full. But like the sprinklers, you're also going to be able to upgrade your containers to get bigger ones, which would then need emptying less often and therefore making the whole system a bit more self-sufficient. I've now got the auto planters working as well, so they take their seeds from the container and then plant those seeds in the tile. So I can choose which type of seeds I want it to plant now. So let's put some wheat seeds into this container, and they'll now get planted into this bed here, and of course they're getting taken from the container. And same thing with the upgrading of the container here as well. The bigger the container you get, the less often you're going to have to refill it. But of course the bigger ones are more expensive. So let's now put all of these concepts together and build ourselves a nice automated vegetable bed. So I'll start off with a sprinkler in the middle to keep everything watered. Then I want to have harvesters down one side and planters down the other side. Obviously both of these need access to containers, and I'm going to put the seeds, the beetroot seeds, in this container so that the planters can now start planting out this bed. And this is now a fairly automated vegetable bed. Obviously I still have to do a bit of manual work occasionally, refilling and emptying the containers, but apart from that, this is now going to grow and harvest lots and lots of beetroot with very little work from my side. So I'm just going to speed up the footage now so that we can see this whole thing in action. There is still one big question I have about all of this, and that is the question of electricity. Should these machines need access to electricity in order to run? Should I be implementing a whole electricity system so that you'd have a generator somewhere and then you'd need to connect up any machines with wires? And potentially also a similar system for the sprinklers as well, connecting them up with pipes. I can definitely see the benefits of it. Obviously it would be more realistic for a start, and it could also probably help with some of the balancing issues and make sure that the automation stuff isn't too overpowered. But on the other hand, as this is a very casual game, I do really value the simplicity of the system at the moment. It's really nice to be able to just pop down these machine blocks and have them work straight away without having to set up some whole other system. So I'm really on the fence at the moment. I think what I need to do is just playtest the game a bit now that I've got the automation working, see how it feels, see how the balancing feels, and decide whether the gameplay would really benefit from having an electricity system and maybe a pipes system for the sprinklers as well. So that's where I am with that. Of course, please do let me know your thoughts, and I'm sure we'll revisit this in a future devlog. So that is it for this video and for the automation stuff for now, although I'm probably going to work on it for another week or so just to tidy up some of the loose ends, and then I'll be moving on to the next gameplay feature, which is going to be all about fruit trees. Before I finish, I want to say a massive thank you to the top Patreon supporters from last month, who were Marcus Rechel, Viechchu, Daryl Zuniga, Kevin Shaw, Peter Westhazen, Ingo Moore, Henning KO, Helson Taveras, Andrew Romans, Marais, Shadeless Fox, Kimo Tamio, Coda the Tyler, Ross from 2 Minute Tabletop, Nikat Asgazada, Zanil Ambakar, Atomic Code, Walden Yan, Chris Naismith, Alan Lantz, Wonuff, Dieter Reinert, Harry Chung, Christoph Herpo, Matthias Barder, Hagen Vingard, Matthew Connaughton, Miggy Doze, Marek Mikolajczyk, Sean McCrory, Kathleen Coda, Timothy Gibbons, and Neil Blakey Milner. So a massive thank you to all of you and to everyone else supporting me over on Patreon. For this week, that is it. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.